Okay folks, welcome back to the ranch. We're going to do something a little different this time around. What we're going to do is reassemble this Sig Sauer 1911-22. We already had it disassembled, sent in through Cerakote. It's been coated with blue titanium Cerakote, and we're going to start our assembly back together. The recording of the disassembly didn't go to the computer or whatever, so anyway, it was lost footage. So what we're going to do basically is show you the reassembly, and that'll give you a good idea on how it goes back together, and if you can get it back together, then you can certainly get it apart. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and do the slide. This is the easiest portion of it. Now, one of the nice things with this firearm is you don't have all the pieces parts that you do on a regular 1911. Basically, that makes our life a lot simpler. So the way this works is this whole firing pin extractor assembly is dropped down into the slide. Yeah. And once that's dropped down into the slide, then it is pinned in place. And once it's pinned in place, then that completes the assembly of the mechanics portion of the slide. We do have the sights to replace on it, so we will go ahead and do that also. But as far as the firing mechanisms on the slide, that's all handled by this replacement part here. The pin that holds this in is actually a ferruled pin that sets in flush on both sides, and that's what holds that entire firing mechanism with the firing pin, the firing pin safety portion of the mechanism, and the extractor itself all in place. Like I say, we will go ahead and replace these sights while we're at it. Both of the front and rear sights are just simply held in place by a set screw. And they go into these front and rear dovetails. Basically, when I took these sights loose, they were just pretty much centered straight on. We'll advise the owner that he may need to alter them slightly as he sees fit. Now, the interesting thing with this rear sight is it did come with this small steel plate. That actually set in the bottom of the sight like so. And then the sight is pushed into place. and then again just held with that set screw. Okay, so that pretty much completes the slide portion of the project. Now for the frame, and you'll notice that a lot of this is going to be basic 1911 frame 101, and for the most part that is in fact the case. There are a few subtleties that are a little different because we're dealing with a 22, but for the most part, like I say, it's basically just standard 1911 101. Trigger and the mag release. Because of the way this slide and barrel go together, the slide has to be assembled onto the frame while we're doing this process. So, like I say, there is some subtle differences because of this being a 22. So, thankfully we caught ourselves early on here. Now, like I say, from about this point on, we're back to kind of pretty much rudimentary 1911 assembly. We've got our trigger and mag release in place. Now this also has a 80 series type firing pin safety. So with that, one of the things that we will have to do is install those 280 series pieces, and as most of you know that hang around this channel much, no, I actually hate 80 series guns, but when you got to deal with an 80 series gun, it's just part of 1911s. So, first thing I'm going to do is just kind of line our hole up here so that that portion of the safety mechanism will be correctly lined up. Then we're going to remove the pin. Because we all know that probably the biggest problem here is going to be getting the disconnector and the sear to line up with that safety piece. So once we have our sear and disconnector parts in place, then we'll be able to put our pin back in. And I don't know if you saw that or not, but our safety piece came out, so we will try to get it also properly lined up. Now, yeah. Okay. Got our pin started through our serum disconnector. Next, we're going to try to line our 80 series safety mechanism up. Not bad, there we go. Okay, so once we get those three parts lined up, it's then time for our next part, which the first part we had was the hook that goes like this. The second part is this hook right here, and the hammer pin goes through that section. So we will try to get everything lined up and in place. It's a little different having to do this with the slide already in place. It's not the way you would normally assemble it, but in this case it's kind of a have-to situation. Once we've got that part lined up, then we're ready to go ahead and install our hammer back into place. We'll install our hammer pin. Okay, and give you a quick look here. So what we've got is hammer, sear, disconnector, back of the trigger bow. This is the lower portion of the 80 series safety, and then the upper portion is right sandwiched in here behind the hammer. But that's all back where it's supposed to be, so we'll go ahead and roll with that. Zoom you back out here a little bit so you can watch this assembly continue. Now, one of the parts that we need to replace is the plunger springs and pins for the safety. So we'll get those back in the proper location. Crap. Well, guys, I believe I've done screwed up, because I'm just looking over here and yep, Got the old guide rod left out. Okay, well, all is not lost, because fortunately, to basically go back to where we need to be, we just need to remove this one screw and take the slide and barrel back off of the frame, which would put us about back where we were at to start with anyway, but it's irrelevant. Not really that there's any particular method to this madness, whether you put the slide on first or you put the slide on last. So in this case we put it on first, and now we're basically ready to put it on last. A couple of things we will go ahead and do though. Yes, we will go ahead and put our guide rod bushing on. Follow that up with our spring. Go ahead and put our barrel lock on. And our spring end cap. Okay. So, back to the frame. Okay, so after a little interruption there, I was saying, I think, that you will notice that we've taken the grip bushings out. Go ahead and replace those in place. Probably the big caution with these is to make sure that they're not cross-threaded, simply because this is an aluminum frame. And we don't want to have them cross-threaded and subsequently stripped out. So since we're working on this side, we'll go ahead and replace these two. Next thing we'll go ahead and do is replace this barrel pin. Now, the thing with this barrel pin and the hammer pin to make sure is one is square and one is tapered. That's the only difference in the two pins. They're the same length and everything, so you want to make sure and watch that very closely. See if we can get our bushings in on the right side. Look to be fairly straight. This blue titanium was a little different color. This pistol originally was a, like I say, it's a Sig Sauer. It was their Sig Sauer OD green pistol, and like I said, the owner wanted it. He found this titanium, and when we got the titanium in from the Cerakote folks, it was awfully dark blue, and I was a little reluctant to go ahead and paint this pistol that color. I did have the owner of it swing by here first and check it out, and he decided that he wanted to go ahead and shoot it that color and see how we ended up. One thing I am going to do on this pistol is, this is the mainspring housing. Looks just like any other normal mainspring housing, except it has this small piece of metal in it and the associated spring. Get that off the floor. What this is it is a magazine safety. And what it does, or I should say is supposed to do, is it prevents you from firing the pistol with the magazine not in the gun. Obviously, that was something that the owner didn't want to have replaced. He said he found it very annoying that you had to put the magazine in it to decock the pistol. So he wanted that piece removed. So we will oblige him in doing that. So we'll go ahead and move our mainspring housing up into place. We're going to follow up with our grip safety. Like I say, this is all really just standard 1911 assembly. So there shouldn't be any surprises for anyone up to this point. Now, this does have an ambidextrous safety. We're going to go ahead and put in the left side first. Once the left side is in place, then we will go ahead and close up this mainspring housing and put our pin in to hold it. We'll follow up with the left side safety, which is just a friction fit basically. And then we're going to go ahead and replace our grips. At least replace this right side grip. The main reason is because like I say, there is basically a friction fit on the safety between the two halves. And the other thing that helps hold this right hand side in place is the grip itself. Now I could tighten it up to make it so that it was a tighter friction fit, but there's really no need to do that, so I'm not going to. So that completes the right hand side of the pistol. Now to go ahead and finish up the left, we'll go ahead and tap our mainspring pin back into place. Go ahead and put our slide lock into place, which we could have done earlier at any point. We just hadn't got around to it yet. Once that's in place, we'll go ahead and set this grip. And after we get this grip set, we will have our Sig Sauer 1911 back together. With exception of two parts. Those parts being that spring that we removed out of the mainspring housing and that magazine safety that we removed out of the mainspring housing. So we'll go ahead and function check. Do not get hammer fall with the safety on. We do not get hammer fall without the grip safety being depressed. It does drop with the grip safety depressed. So we are completed. This is the Sig Sauer 1911-22 in blue titanium Cerakote. Hope you guys find this interesting. We'll talk to you later. You have a nice day.